What's up, guys? I'm Dmitry. Lian Li has plenty of awesome things. The Odyssey X, the new Lancool II, some prototype fans that are all attached together. Let's go check it out. But huge thanks to Fantex and SteelSeries for sponsoring our Computex visit. All right, good people. So this is the Odyssey X. This is Lian Li's answer towards the whole movement forward with the open frame concept. And I really appreciate what they're trying to do here. It is expensive. The price point is between $300 to $400, but that is only because so much engineering goes into something like this, because this case are all the same parts as this. And you can turn this into the vertical orientation, or take this vertical orientation and put it into something a bit more traditional. The price point also reflects the construction element. So everything is aluminum here. We have tempered glass. We have anodized little accents for the I/O, and they are thinking about expanding that color horizon beyond the black and red into titanium, silver, bronze. And I mean, look at this I/O. It's so tiny, but so pretty. The feet as well. And we have a Type-C at the front I/O, so it is future-proof. And I really appreciate this whole direction of customizing certain elements in the case that has character and yet has a little pop of color too. So the concept of modularity, it will come disassembled, which is actually the whole fun part of assembling something like it. So you can basically immediately start building something like that, or go into the original orientation. They wanted something user-friendly for modders too. Removing certain panels, they're all on clips. Easy, toolless installation. You can paint them, you can mod them, you can cut them, and that's the whole idea. They're really trying to optimize the user friendliness in terms of converting the vertical orientation into something more traditional. So, for example, the top plates in the vertical orientation are actually front panels when it's in this orientation. Front panel in here is going to be the cable cover. In the vertical orientation, none of the parts are wasted. So you're using all the same parts and just converting something that would fit into a different space. And everything is currently done on screws. And they want to really streamline that procedure by using little clips. So the top panels would clip in and you use only a few screws. So the entire assembly will not take you hours, but maybe 30 minutes or so. The only 4 parts that are not shared between the 2 frames is actually this little mount for the tempered glass side panel that you can see is bent, and that is so cool. So a little bit of airflow options in there and gives the case so much extra character, and that is because you need this angular piece into which you attach the tempered glass panel versus the original orientation. As you can see, it is all flat. So those are the only pieces that are not used and not shared between the 2 frames. And so the whole idea behind this case is water cooling. Why would you spend $400 on the case that supports air cooling? They told us, like, of course that is possible, but right now in this traditional orientation, you have a bit more space in front of the motherboard tray, so you can mount a radiator on the side and the front, and at the top as well, and you have a bit more space in front of the power supply, versus in the vertical orientation, you have a bit of that height advantage. So what they did here is this massive reservoir on the top, plus a really nice thick radiator up there as well. In terms of the advantages, it's would be based on your preference and the physical characteristics of something that is angular and taller versus something a bit more traditional. I really admire Lian Li for going out of the way to design something like this, because if you guys recall the Rio Toro enclosure that comes disassembled and you can actually expand the height of the enclosure, that was the initial stages of what I would love to see more of in the case industry. Expanding the case options, either size, orientation, and format. And I feel like the Odyssey X encompasses all those elements well. And then we have the Lancool II. If you guys recall the Lancool I, that was an interesting approach towards the front panel and that whole open options. But the Lancool II is taking a different approach in terms of adding more features for a really affordable price point. This thing is supposed to cost $89, and under $100, I feel like it's got a lot of competitive options. So first of all, this dual plate option to open up the sides. So this way you open up the power supply shroud, you can access your hard drives this way. You can actually access the power supply as well in case you need to unplug something that you accidentally plugged in too much. And this also has multiple functionality because we have this indentation and ventilation. So they have fans mounted on top of the power supply shroud, and it actually helps to draw in some air. I really like this dual panel approach. It cuts down on the cost, and they figured out a way to add functionality for that bottom plate, which is awesome. But now let's talk about the front panel. So first of all, the lighting here is very nice and ambient, and that is because the actual LED strip is between the dust filter and this mesh in the front over here. So it gives the whatever's underneath there a super beautiful glow. And look at what happens. Whoop! Because there are pins over there, so it's a completely toolless panel. You can simply remove it. You don't have to constantly be connecting cables, and that for an $89 case is actually quite rare to see. And the star of the show for me would be this fan bracket that supports up to a 360mm radiator. And the cool thing is that we have these little pins at the bottom, and those pins allow you to actually rotate the bracket, and because of how the frame is designed, you can insert this fan bracket more inwards, giving you a little bit more space over here before the front panel. And by rotating it, it allows you to actually mount the fans further inside. I find that a really cool way to give you extra space on the interior, or if you want to have everything outside of the frame, that is also possible. And I really want to see more companies do this, because not only does it mean that you can install things outside of the frame, but you have this whole modularity approach of having something outside of the frame or like this further in to give you more space for push-pull, or some water just leaked. And as for the hard drive cage, this is cool. It's on a rail system instead of being set to locked locations with screws or little mounting points, which means that you can literally push it in and clear up all this space for push and pull setup, and you can pull it out depending on like how much space you actually don't need, and clear up a little bit room in front of the power supply. Love this approach, want to see it more often. As for the interior, one cool element is this cable cover. So right now it's in the standard ATX position, but look at this. Boop. You take it out, you again rotate it, you push it back in the pins, and now we've opened up this area for an eATX motherboard while still giving you that full coverage in terms of where the cables will exit, and they will fully be covered. I love these little details that make the assembly procedure, like they don't interfere if you have a standard ATX motherboard, but gives you options if you go beyond. And coming to the back, they're not done yet with the feature set. Man, how is this an $89 enclosure? I don't know. But okay, look at this. Cable management, 2 plates, one for the CPU backplate, one for this whole side section. Can you see any cables? I can't. We have the dual SSDs that are visible beautifully behind the glass. They're also including an optional hot swappable hard drive bracket because they're accessible from the other side, which means that you don't necessarily need to come on here, fiddle around with your SATA cables. Everything is like thought about. This is optional, but I would highly recommend you pick one up if you are actually using hard drive cages. And we also have these two SSD caddies on this flappy cover. And finally, we have a more finished O11 Dynamic XL ROG certified case. A few changes here include they've removed a lot of the ROG branding from the front. Now it's just complete brushed aluminum black, and the only ROG branding is a little tiny thing on the tempered glass panel. Thank you so much. I'm guessing this is going to be enough feedback from the community. They don't want something like really branded. A few more things include a new SSD bracket that is toolless that you can relocate from the back all the way to the front, and it just snaps into position. They've also added this whole fan bracket, which means if you're installing anything at the bottom, you don't have to rotate the case and screw in the fans or radiator. Now this bracket is toolless again. You can remove it and install everything that way. We have a new extension for the motherboard, which means that if you're using that massive 15-inch motherboard, you can install this in there and extend that whole selection. They've also expanded the rubber grommets, whereas on the original it was just on a corner, whereas here it spans beyond. Little details that really make a big difference. They've also added hot swappable hard drives at the back. They now come included. This is not like an optional thing like we saw with the Lancool II. As for the price, it's going to be $199, and I feel like the O11 Dynamic XL is going to be that thing that people really wanted from the O11 Dynamic originally. Something bigger, something that supports really large GPU blocks, and you still have the same sort of design of mounting all types of radiators on the side, at the bottom, or the top. And yeah. Looks like a really awesome case for water coolers and enthusiasts. All right, guys, so that is it from Lian Li. I'm really looking forward to seeing the final Odyssey X, and I really love the budget direction, the $89 price point for Lancool II. The feature set and everything there just feels nice and complete. So let me know what you think about these two enclosures you saw. Thanks so much for watching. Check out this other relevant stuff over here, and we'll talk to you in the next video.